Welcome back, everybody. Once again, sorry for the layoff, about 2.5 weeks. Gonna try not to let it happen again. School ramped up, life ramped up, other stressful shit kind of ramped up, so I kind of needed to take a break for those reasons, but I'm back. Hopefully I'm gonna be more consistent moving forward, and today I'm bringing you guys a video on my guys for redraft for this coming fantasy football season. These are pretty much my guys, no matter what, as Ray GQ would say, that I'm pretty much gonna do whatever I can to acquire, whether it be drafting or even trading at some point, like right after the draft. Even if the price is high, these are guys I'm looking to acquire no matter what. I'm going to do quarterbacks and running backs today only because if I did wide receiver and tight end, it would probably be a 40-minute video, and it's a little bit too early in the offseason for me to do that to you guys. Probably do it to you at some point, but for now we're going to keep it relatively short, and we're going to kick off with the quarterbacks. First on my list is, if you've watched some of my videos before, no surprise, Dak Prescott. I made a video about him and why I love him so much coming into the year. I'll probably link it in the little informational tab over here. Should be there right about now. But I'll still go into it a bit here because I don't want to just link another video off of this. That's a bit too shambles for my blood. One of the biggest things is that his value is going to be lower due to his injury that he's coming off of, that fucking ankle shatter, whatever it was. It was absolutely vile and disgusting. I thought his shoe just fell off. It was his foot. But based on the research and looking that I've done, it's that this injury really won't impact him once he's fully healthy. It was a relatively clean break that didn't involve many ligaments or muscles, so he should be fine. He was also an absolutely electric player to start last year. He was on a pace of nearly 6,800 passing yards, 36 passing touchdowns, 12 rushing touchdowns, and 350 rushing yards. Would have been 500.8 fantasy points over a full season. Nuts. Probably wouldn't have maintained that pace, but he could have kept something pretty close to it. He's also been a model of consistency throughout fantasy football, finishing as a top 10 quarterback every single year he's played a full season, including being the second quarterback overall last year. He's also outperformed his ADP every year, and he would have this year as well if he kept pace. He was coming off the boards as the quarterback 3 and would have by far finished as the quarterback 1. Things that are really nice for him coming back this year is that his offensive line is hopefully going to be healthy. I believe Tyron Smith, La'el Collins, and Zach Martin were all out. Both of your starting tackles and one of your all-pro talent guards. Not going to be great for a quarterback. And more in line with his production, like the stats, his Konami code upside is something that's really appealing moving forward in fantasy. Not just with him, but with a lot of quarterbacks in general. Basically, what the Konami code is that 20% of your production should come from rushing. That's like the baseline for a quarterback moving forward if you want a top 12 finisher. He had 19.7 this year, so he was right up on that line. If he had another few rushing yards, another rushing touchdown, he would have been there. 13.1% in 2019, which is a lot lower than you'd like to see, but he still finished as the quarterback 2 overall, and no less than 22.4% from 2016 through 2018. I believe his average over these 5 years has been 21.4. So over the course of his career, he's very consistently been a Konami code type of guy. And if you look at who's going to fall behind in redraft leagues this year, you're looking at Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, possibly Aaron Rodgers, likely Herbert, Deshaun Watson, maybe Wilson, maybe even Tom Brady for some people. That's going to put him right in as the quarterback 7 or 8. He's a lock to outperform that ADP. He does it every year. And if he comes anything near his production last year, he's going to be an incredible value for you in redraft. My other guy at quarterback this year, sticking in the NFC East, we're going with Jalen Hurts. People might not mess with this guy for a few reasons, whether it be the belief that the Eagles are going to take a quarterback at 6 or trade up like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, any of those guys. The belief that he stinks, which I don't agree with personally, but I guess you can have that. Or the idea that he was just a flash in the pan. I disagree with all three of those. In his limited time as the starter last year, from weeks 13 through 17, he was the quarterback 8 in fantasy and the QB 10 in points per game in that time span, excluding the 1 week Marcus Mariota played QB 11 otherwise. The major allure here is his ridiculous rushing upside and Konami code potential. 45.7% of his fantasy production came from rushing yards and touchdowns. That's a ridiculous number, and just to put it in perspective, Lamar Jackson's 2019 season, which he absolutely blew everybody else out of the water, only had 30.6% of its points coming from rushing production. And it's not meant to say that he's going to be the next Lamar Jackson or he's going to be having a record-breaking campaign next year. It's just going to show you that he's going to provide you a really, really nice floor due to his rushing upside and abilities. He's scoring almost 7% more of his points from rushing than Lamar, a guy whose gimmick at this point is pretty much that he's such a good rusher. Passing doesn't really matter. And Hurts, not in that boat, but he did struggle as a passer this year, had some inconsistencies, had a low completion percentage, but a lot of that was due to his willingness to actually push the ball down the field with pretty high confidence for a rookie. It was pretty impressive, didn't pan out all the time, obviously, but it was still nice to see. And assorted injuries throughout the offense to the O-line, as it is every year with the Eagles. Wide receivers were banged up. I don't know if Sanders was banged up when Hurts was starting. I think he was good to go. But there were some outside circumstances that definitely impacted Hurts' play. And I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes top 5 this year, almost solely due to that rushing potential and upside. And given that he could be the quarterback 10 to 12 off the board, and probably rounds like 9 or 10 in your 1 QB leagues, which is what I'm focusing on, by the way. I'm not going to dive into Superflex yet. Guy's going to come off the board before him. Everybody I mentioned before for Dak. Probably Matthew Stafford, maybe Trevor Lawrence, even if people are really high on him. I can't blame anybody. And then Ryan Tannehill as well. He's less of a sure thing than Dak to me, even though Dak is coming off of that pretty major injury. But he is an incredible late-round gamble that I'm almost certainly going to be scooping up in all my leagues. Because if he pays off, it is going to be in a major, major way. Moving on from my quarterbacks, we're going to talk about my guys at RB this year. And starting off, yet again, if you've watched this channel, no surprise, Austin Eckler is my first guy. Another guy I've made a video on, but what kind of supporter, what kind of stand would I be if I didn't pound the table for my guys pretty much every chance I got and gave myself? He has major upside in this Chargers offense and already has chemistry with Justin Herbert, who looked to him pretty frequently as a check-down option. There are some red flags around him, don't get me wrong, like the lack of goal line usage and the loss of Anthony Lynn, for as conservatively, and Shane Steichen, the play caller, as conservatively as they would run this offense, damn, Anthony Lynn loved him some running back production. He fed the hell out of every running back he got. But there is a silver lining to that loss of Anthony Lynn. It could cause them to stray away from that uber-conservative play calling that really hamstrung this offense, as well as Justin Herbert's abilities. They could open Austin Eckler's route tree back up, because if you've ever watched him, he can run a route. He's incredible at it. He has really nice route running skills for a running back, or just for a player in general. He's really, really good at it. And they reduced him to swing passes and screens almost every game he was playing, which is absolutely ridiculous. It should be a felony. I mean, I'm happy for another guy who got Anthony Lynn that I'll be talking about later, but free Austin Eckler, that's the bottom line. There's still going to be an incredibly RB pass-heavy offense, I believe, with Joe Lombardi bringing him in from the Saints, I believe. Another guy who worked in that Saints team. He had the second most targets, or the Chargers had the second most targets in the league for running backs. And Eckler's true abilities really show when he's utilized as a dual-threat running back. He's another guy people could be lower on due to his injuries sapping away over half of his year, as well as this overall sentiment of RBs burned us last year, let's fade them this year, that I think is going to be prevalent. Covered a little bit here. Go watch the video if you want more. I'm super high on Austin Eckler coming into this year. Up Austin Eckler, we have my guy, number 2, Deandre Swift. One of these days, I'm going to make an actual full-fledged video on DeAndre, but today, he's just another part of the bigger video. One day, DeAndre, you'll get your shine, much like how the Lions treated him last year. That's one of the reasons his potential for this year is so great, honestly. AP's finally going to be gone, and Swift will be treated like the workhorse. We all knew he was coming out of college, but because he went to Detroit, we knew they'd fuck him up the first year, and that's exactly what happened. He'll also occasionally be spelled by a guy like Kerryon Johnson or another backup, clear number 2 to DeAndre Swift's number 1 this coming year. He has so much like that. His athletic stats are pretty solid, with 80th percentile at least speed and 40 times with a bit of a lower burst score, 62nd percentile, but he just jumps off the field when he has the ball. All of that's from Player Profiler, by the way. Love that site. He's also built real strong at 5'8", 212. His BMI is like 31. I wish I looked like that with a 31 BMI, but I don't. I'm also excited over Dan Campbell, Anthony Lynn, and everything they've said and done in the past. Campbell was the assistant head coach for the Saints and helped utilize Alvin Kamara, making him the player that he is. He's a guy that Campbell has also compared DeAndre Swift to, especially in usage. He said he wants to use him in a similar way, especially when coming out of the slot as a receiver against linebackers. Lynn also famously loves running backs, workhorses specifically, helping Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler secure multiple top 10 RB finishes, and he also made Kalen Ballage fantasy relevant for like 2 weeks. If you can make that bum relevant at all in fantasy, then if you get a talented running back, watch the hell out. Did it with Eckler, did it with Gordon. No doubt it's going to continue with Swift. And the Lions are going to be a team that's going to be gritty. Dan Campbell wants to eat your fucking kneecaps in front of your children, both of them while he's laying on the ground. He just wants to look up at you and gnaw at your ACL. I don't know entirely what that means in terms of football, like plays, but they're probably going to be tough, going to be gritty, going to be violent and committing crimes on the field, going to be running the ball a lot, which plays into Deandre Swift. You have a guy who wants to use him on the ground and a guy who wants to use him throughout the air. Both places he can obviously show his amazing potential and talents. There wasn't much to work with in terms of production this year on the field for fantasy. He was the RB10 in points per game in half PPR formats from weeks 10 to 16, the weeks he was the starters. I believe he missed some games in there as well. That's the main highlight stat in terms of production and points. But I think moving into year 2, Deandre Swift is one of the most clear breakout candidates at the running back position. My final guy for the video, my last running back, is going to be Nick Chubb. Another guy I want to make a video on at some point, but that's besides the point. Nick Chubb really gives me his last name. He finished this year as the RB9 in half PPR, only playing 12 games, which was at least 2 less than everybody else inside the top 10. He scored 12 touchdowns in 12 games, all of which were rushing, which some people are going to say is unsustainable, and I slightly agree, but there's definitely some hesitation in just calling for regression because he scored a lot of touchdowns. 2018, his rookie year, he had 10 touchdowns in 16 games, but 8 touchdowns in 9 starts. The one game he didn't start and had 2 touchdowns was the game against Detroit, where he had 3 rushes for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Absolute home run potential. In 2019, he had 8 touchdowns in 16 starts, which is probably more towards his norm, and this year he had 12 and 12. So him scoring a touchdown every game might be slightly unsustainable, but he has definitely shown throughout his career that home run and even consistent scoring potential. He can break them long for 70, or he can give you a touchdown every week, whether it's on the goal line or 30 yards out. He can do it from anywhere, and I feel like just calling for regression because the number of touchdowns he scored was high is kind of a bad way to go about your process. A worry with that, though, is that he hasn't scored a receiving touchdown the past 2 years, but this year was his best year for yards per route, or yards per reception by far, as well as his highest catch percentage. This Stefanski offense has shown a clear uptick in his receiving potential, and I feel like that'll only continue as the year progresses, as we get to next year, another year in this system. Speaking of that system, on top of his ridiculous talent, Chubb is just in an incredible situation. 4th best O-line in the league, 2nd best run blocking O-line in the league, which is pretty much all you could ever ask for. 4th highest rushing percentage team in the league with Kevin Stefanski, and that was only in his first year. They really seem to click, especially down the stretch, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see a step up from the entire offense in year 2. And even with Kareem Hunt in the backfield as a very real player, Chubb balled out. They were both actually top 10 fantasy running backs, which shows the overall potential for running back production in this offense. This is a run-first team, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The running backs are their keys to victory most weeks, especially against those upper echelon teams. We saw it in the playoffs. Although Baker kind of tore up the Steelers, what they could do on the ground against both the Steelers and the Chiefs was incredible. Almost won that Chiefs game. Could have, should have, would have, but I think it showed what Chubb can do against really high-level teams. I know Hunt being there, plus the injury from last year, plus the mild touchdown dependence could scare people, but based on his own individual talent as well as the situation around him and his past production, I have Chubb locked in as a top 6 back next year, without question. Just to run the block one more time, my guys at quarterback this year are Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, and at running back we have Austin Eckler, Deandre Swift, and Nick Chubb. That's going to be it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed. It's good to be back hit again. Nothing quite like just sitting down and talking the shit about fantasy football for about 15-20 minutes. Something I love. I love improving my craft. I love sharing it with you guys. That's what it's all about. Like I said, more consistency, hopefully coming soon. Going to try and have another video out tomorrow or Tuesday. Maybe finishing up the My Guys list, talking about wide receivers, tight ends. Maybe I'll make that Nick Chubb or DeAndre Swift video I keep harping on about. Who knows? Either way, I'm glad to be back and sharing my love for fantasy football with you guys to help you succeed. All right. Have a nice day, guys.